Hello, welcome back to my Good Enough Mum page, and today I am talking about top tips for well-being at Christmas. So welcome, and I hope my Christmas tree lights are not too distracting in the background. I've left a note on the door because all my grown-up children are at home at the moment. So I've left a note on the sitting room door saying live feed, do not disturb. And it's quite funny really, because of course 9:15 a.m. in the morning, what do I think is going to happen? It's very unlikely that any of them are even going to be up at the moment. Anyway, here I am, and thinking about how we can help ourselves to get through Christmas and how we can feel good. And I sort of played around with the title a bit because I thought surviving Christmas is actually a little bit negative. And I'd like to see it more as ways that we can really be healthy and well over Christmas and enjoy it and have fun. And so I've got 5 tips for you today, and I'm going to run through them. I am writing a blog as well, which will be out later on today, and that will tell you some, fill in more really, because I can't possibly explain everything in the live feed. So number 1 is to take some time out over Christmas for yourself. And the reason this really struck me as important is because I'm just looking at the picture. I can see the lights have suddenly started flashing. Perhaps when I say anything important, the Christmas tree lights will flash. Yes, so the reason I think taking time out is important is I had a really busy weekend. We got an awful lot done, and we were out and about visiting friends as well. But I did end up feeling quite stressed out by the end of the weekend. And what really made a difference was when I took some time out yesterday to go for a lovely walk on the beach. And that's what helps me wind down. It was so relaxing to see the tide coming in, the sun rising, the sound of the geese that are on the estuary at the moment. So I don't know what geese do, whether they quack, but this sound was really rather beautiful, and it just gave me a chance to unwind. And I think at this busy time of year it's really important, especially for those of us who are mothers and who are doing an awful lot for our families to try and give them a nice Christmas. It's really important for us to think about ourselves and our own needs, and to take some time out for ourselves. It doesn't have to be what I did, but anything that makes you feel good, whether it's sitting down reading a book, or having a nice warm bath, or listening to some music and dancing around the kitchen, whatever it is that helps you feel good, to do something for yourself over this festive period. So that's my first top tip. And my second top tip is all about our expectations and what we do and how we tend to make ourselves unhappy when we place expectations on ourselves and on others. You can see the Christmas lights are flashing again, another important point. And to replace our expectations of ourselves and others, to replace it with gratitude. It's talking about 2 different ways of seeing the world, really. We can be in a place where we feel that we need other people to serve us, that we need to serve other people, that we need stuff around us to make us happy, and that the way things are isn't right, that somehow we've got to make them better. And that's quite often associated with the perfectionist mindset. And it's associated with a mindset where we really don't think we have enough, rather than believing that we are enough in ourselves. And if we can shift our mindset to one of gratitude, if we can start being grateful for what we already have, rather than what we think we don't have, or be grateful for what we can do rather than what we think everybody else should do for us. It's amazing how much of a difference that can make to our happiness and our sense of well-being. It gives you freedom, really. What I've said in the blog is how I used to expect myself to be amazing and I was a perfectionist about myself, and the problem with that was then I would then look to others to support me. I would look to others for my sense of well-being, because I would always be trying to prove myself to people, to prove to them that I was good enough, and that meant that I'd drive myself really hard to create maybe a perfect Christmas or a perfect Christmas cake or perfect family memories. That perfectionism was really about trying to meet my own needs, to make myself feel good. And I put a lot of pressure on myself and also other people because, you know, quite frankly, it's too much for one person to do. And so I'd put a lot of pressure on my partner to help me. And I'd maybe put pressure on other people to enjoy themselves. And all in all, I was trying to control things too much and trying to make everything perfect, to make everybody perfect in my own eyes. And of course that doesn't really work because I'm not allowing other people to be themselves and they're feeling controlled, and it creates a very sort of tense atmosphere really. And I think what's really helped is for me to let go of those expectations on myself and to recognise that I am good enough, that I don't have to do anything to prove that I am good enough. And in so doing, I've been able to let go of my expectations of perfectionism of myself and also my expectations of other people. And it's enabled me to be kinder towards other people as well. So, you know, one of my children is quite introverted and social occasions actually really wearing for them. And so rather than placing expectations on them as to the way they should behave, I'm actually just really grateful now when they show up because I recognise that for them, this is actually their way of giving at Christmas is to appear for a short time, and that's good enough. You know, they're making an effort, and I really appreciate that about them. And obviously, they don't have to do it if they don't want, but that they want to be part of the family. But that I don't sort of place an expectation on them to be there all the time. And if they need time to themselves, that's okay. And so I appreciate what they can do and allow them to be themselves. And that's made me a lot happier, and I think it's helped them to feel happier at Christmas too. So that's my second top tip, which is to replace your expectations with gratitude. And then I'm moving on to actually physical ways to help us feel good. So my third top tip is to eat mindfully at Christmas. Isn't it easy at Christmas to overdo it on the food? And then we suffer for it. And I think we can get into this sort of binge diet sort of way of being. And I was thinking about that this morning, and I was thinking at Christmas, you know, we're sort of presented with all this lovely food. And obviously, from an evolutionary perspective, when there's an abundance of food in front of us, our natural innate tendency is to fill up on the food because, you know, according to our evolution, we don't know when the next meal's going to be coming along. And so we tend to eat everything that we can do. But to eat mindfully is about appreciating each aspect of the food that we're eating, to really notice the flavours and the textures. And that means eating quite slowly and really taking the time to enjoy the food. And the advantage of that is the more slow we eat, the more quickly we notice the body's signals that we're filling up. And so if we can eat slowly, appreciating our food, it will probably help us to eat less over Christmas. And so we can stop when we're full. And then in that way, we don't need to feel guilty, and we don't then have to go into this sort of January frenzy of detoxing and dieting. We can actually just be mindful of what we eat and not necessarily have to diet in January. And alongside that, the reason I paused is another thought that struck me, something else I wanted to share about eating mindfully, is that Christmas is a time of celebration, and it is a time where perhaps we can enjoy foods that normally we might not choose to eat, but not to feel guilty if, you know, we go and visit someone and the only stuff that's offered is perhaps really rich food, and not to feel guilty and think, oh, this is breaking my normal food rules, because this is a time of celebration and we can enjoy all food. All food's there to be enjoyed. There isn't a bad food. It's just a case of eating and enjoying the food, but not eating too much of it, because we're noticing how much we're enjoying it, and we're noticing it when we're full. But not to feel guilty about eating the food that perhaps at other time of year we might not choose to eat. But at this time of year, we're actually in a time of celebration, and we can enjoy that food. So that's my third top tip, which is to eat mindfully. Just keep an eye on the time here. And my fourth top tip, and this is a subject that's very dear to my heart, and I think it's dear to the heart of any mother who's had small children, and that's about getting enough sleep. It doesn't matter how old your children are, you could still be fairly obsessive about sleep. Unfortunately, mine are in the state now, as you could tell when I said they probably won't be getting up and interrupting this live feed, in that they don't tend to wake us up at night. And, if they are feeling ill, they tend to look after themselves until the morning. But obviously, when you've got little children, it is really difficult to get a good night's sleep. So what can you do to ensure that the sleep that you have is of good quality? Because you can't necessarily stop small children from interrupting you at night. So actually, what can you do? And I probably don't need to tell you this, but I am going to say it. It's about recognising things like, if you drink a lot of alcohol, you're not going to get a very good night's sleep. And some people think that if they drink alcohol, it's going to help them get to sleep quicker. That might be the case, but you're going to be waking up because you're dehydrated. You don't get such a good night's sleep when you've had a lot of alcohol. And so maybe if you've got small children and they will be waking you up in the night, is not really to have a lot of alcohol over Christmas. You could save that maybe until they're older. I'm really sorry. But even then, even when you're older, are you prepared? You have to think to yourself about the balance of probabilities and what you'd prefer for your life. You might think that actually a day's hangover is worth a good party. And if that's the case, that's the case. You're an adult and you can decide that. But equally, you might decide that, and I often decide this because for me, I don't really like getting up in the morning with a headache. It does spoil my day. And so for me, I don't drink a lot because I'd prefer to be fresh and ready for the day ahead. That's me, that's my choice. But do think about that. Do think about alcohol and how it affects your sleep. And also going back to the eating, if you do overeat, obviously you're going to have indigestion, and that's not going to help you either. So think about that as well. Think about your eating and how it's going to affect your sleep. Other things to think about are, tech. It might be a really good time to experiment over Christmas, is to leave your tech downstairs, to actually charge your phone up overnight downstairs rather than upstairs in your bedroom. Just experiment with it and see how it feels. It really does make quite a difference not to have tech in the bedroom with you. And finally, what I wanted to share was also tips for when you are finding it difficult to sleep. If you have been interrupted in the night and you are tired, but perhaps you're thinking a lot and you can't switch your brain off, the most effective thing that I find is I have to tell myself that 4 a.m. is not a good time to be thinking, and that what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on what's going on around me in the moment. And so I set myself this little task, which is to find 5 things that I can hear. And that really does take some concentration because it's quite quiet at night and you really have to listen and see what you can hear. And once I've found 5 things that I can hear, I try and focus on 5 things, 5 sensations, what I can feel. And so I really notice the feel of maybe my pyjamas or the duvet, the weight of the duvet on me. I notice the warmth in my feet. So I try and find 5 things that I can feel, what sensations I can feel. And usually as I'm focusing on those sensations, I drop off to sleep, because what's happened is I've distracted my brain from those thoughts that tend to be going round and round. And I'm really noticing what's going on in the moment. And that gives my brain a message, I think, that it's okay to relax and I'm able to go back to sleep. So I hope you find that helpful. And my fifth and final tip, I'm waiting for the Christmas lights to start flashing here, is actually to get out and have some exercise, because exercise releases endorphins and it helps us to feel good. And when we've been stuck indoors, perhaps all as a family, it actually helps us all to be fresh if we can go out for a walk. And it might be that you want to go out for a walk with a family, or it might be that you can say to them, why don't you all go out for a walk and I'll see you later. And you can potter around at home and maybe go out for a walk on your own later. Or perhaps it would be fun to go out with them if you've got small kids and they've been given bikes for Christmas, you know, or scooters. Take them out, let them test them out, you know, go somewhere and have a nice time out and about in the fresh air, because it'll help to freshen you up. It'll help you to feel good because of the release of those endorphins as you exercise. And it's really good to try and make a commitment, because especially obviously in the Northern Hemisphere, the nights are drawing in, and walking is a really important thing for me. I'm out every day walking, and I really begin to notice if I don't go out for walks. But I do notice that if I leave it too late in the day, you know, the sun really is going down by about 3 o'clock. So it's really good. I really notice the weather is usually much better first thing in the morning. You can get up and the sun comes up and it can be really clear, and the weather sets in later in the day. So it's a really good idea to get up and get out first thing, and then it's done. You know, you do need to plan to exercise over Christmas. So make a commitment that you will get out first thing, and that will help you to feel good, and help you give a focus to your day and stop that sort of Christmas torpor that can set in when everyone's getting up late and overeating. So that's my 5 top tips for well-being over Christmas. So number 1 is take time for yourself. Number 2 is replace your expectations with gratitude. Number 3 is eat mindfully. Number 4 is get some sleep. And number 5 is get some exercise. And I'll certainly be putting those strategies into place over Christmas. And finally, I just want to remind you that you don't have to be perfect. None of us do, and your family don't have to be perfect either. And I hope that whatever you're doing over this festive period, whether you're celebrating Christmas or not, that it turns out to be a good holiday for you, and it's a time where you can rest and enjoy yourself. Take care now. I'll be back in the new year at 9:15 on Tuesdays, and I look forward to seeing you then. My blog will be out later today, and you can find that at thegoodenoughmum.com/blog. Bye for now.